Hello everyone. Today we'll be looking at Wordsworth to Ruskin. We are trying to cover a certain period in English literature, as you're all familiar with. Wordsworth, he represents the Romantic age, and Ruskin almost touches the Victorian period. So what we are going to do is we are going to look at the poetry of this period. And as you all know, we'll be looking at only certain key figures. The first one will be William Wordsworth. Yes, he was one of the pioneers, you could say, or the father of the Romantic age. And he was not alone in being the trendsetter. He was also supported by his friend S.T. Coleridge. And then, besides these two people who are representing the Romantic age, we would also like to look at Lord Tennyson, who was a Victorian poet. And then next, I would also like to look at Matthew Arnold. Now you might ask, why these four choices? These are representative figures whose poetry is considered very important and representing their periods. You must also remember that it was not only their poetic contribution but also the literary theory that they contributed. That is also very important. Okay. So let's look at some of the main characteristics of the poetry of Romantic age. First and foremost, as you can see, it was a celebration of nature. That is one characteristic feature that you will see in Romantic poetry. Next one is very often the writers or the poets of the Romantic period, they express loneliness and melancholy. That is the dominant feeling that they express there. And another main characteristic that you could so much identify with Romantic poetry is idealization of women. That's very much appreciable by a women's college, and as women, I know this is the first time that they started idealizing women. If you remember, the neoclassical age looked at women, especially, they had the stereotypical society women, and the poetry also concentrated only about the London society. So here for the first time you have this romantic or idealized notion of woman. And then the next important thing that belongs to the Romantic period is the interest in common man. So even for the first time, Wordsworth used, as you know, what was called real language of real man, the common man. That was the poetic diction. So, what are all the things that you need to make note of when you are considering the poetry from any period? The first and foremost one that you need to focus on is the forms of poetry that are preferred by a certain set of writers. As you all know very well, lyrics, odes and sonnets, these are all some of the popular, even ballads were popularized by the Romantic period. And then let's look at what is the next one, the common themes. I think based on the previous slide you will be able to understand what might have been some of the common themes, and they very often celebrated the common man, everyday man's life. The next one that you need to look at is the poetic diction. The Romantic period was very particular to stick to the real language of real man. Now, there are YouTube links that I want you to look up and become familiar with. Thank you so much for your patient listening.